at what point would it become economical to refinance our debt?
During, if you remember a number of years ago, we looked at it when interest rates were really low, less than 1%, and it was still uneconomical because of the actual fixed rate that they will charge us to pay the loans off early.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
No, okay, well, thank you very much for that. The recommendation is that we note the contents of the report. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. All right, this takes us on to item 6, which is the accidental dwelling fire analysis over the last 20 years, which sounds like it could be very interesting. I think the Assistant Chief, Jed, is going to talk us through this one.
Thanks, Chair. As the Chair just mentioned, the purpose of the report is to provide members an overview of the last 20 years relating to the circumstances of fatalities in accidental dwelling fires across Merseyside from 2005 through to 2025. Members are asked to note the contents of the report and the ongoing work relating to home safety. This report is updated annually, and members will be aware the report offers an in-depth analysis of all fire fatalities, including causes and the associated circumstances within the household. This data analysis, starting on page 57 of your pack, in part underpins our home fire safety strategy. However, members will also note this analysis has supported the introduction of other initiatives such as the Older Persons Day and our Winter Warm initiatives, which we conduct with many of our local authority partners. I'll draw members' attention to the graphic on page 65 of May. Members may note during 2024 and 25, MFRS attended 7 fire fatalities, which had followed an all-time low figure in 2023 to 24 of 1. In recent years, counts of accidental fire deaths have fluctuated from a high in 16 during 2015 to 2016 down to a low, as mentioned, in 23-24. During 24-25, we've had 7 fire deaths, which has seen an increase on 6 through the previous year, but a reduction of 3 from 22 to 23. The fluctuations in fire deaths unfortunately shows very little pattern, highlighting the difficulty with identifying where and when the incidents will take place. However, we have again seen deaths relating to smoking materials and the emergence of battery energy sources such as lithium ion. Through the use of data, we'll continue to identify vulnerable members of public, and we'll further enhance our targeted approach. This is something now gaining further support from local GPs and the wider NHS through our CIPHER initiative that we're working with partners on. MFRS will continue to work closely with these key partners to ensure the risk of fire is reduced within our communities. By establishing data sharing protocols with other agencies, MFRS can further engage with vulnerable people who are already known to other professional services. This will greatly assist in identifying those most vulnerable to risk within our community. For reassurance, the data clearly shows our strategy is working. However, through the use of data and understanding our communities better, we'll continue to evolve and enhance this to prevent future fires and accidents, ultimately keeping members of the public safe. Happy to take any questions on the report.
Thanks very much. Okay, Councillor Makinson first.
Thank you, Chair. It's an excellent and very detailed report. The only thing that struck me is there's no breakdown on housing type and tenure in this. It might actually help us direct resources to when it's particularly prevalent in high rises or masonettes or terraced houses or whatever. And that might be useful to have that information.
Yeah, so this is a 20-year summary report. In addition to this, we produce annual reports for each preceding year, along with accidental injuries, also road traffic collisions. So the report that our strategy and performance team put together has all of that data. And again, just for reassurance, that's something that does inform our functional plan, certainly for the prevention and protection activities for the forthcoming year. I probably should have added earlier on, historical data is great and we utilise it to a great extent. However, what we're looking now is to anticipate more risk of what we're seeing. The communities are changing, as we're all very aware, but also modern technology is changing, so our strategy needs to evolve year on year, and absolutely one of the building type is something that we do take into consideration.
Councillor Grace.
Yeah, just as an excellent report. I mean, I've never seen anything like this before, so I can really see the significance of looking back at history as well with up to date. But I think the line on page 64, as fire fatalities are a relatively rare occurrence, the volume of data is small, therefore some conclusions based on the data should be approached with caution, and that has to says so much about Merseyside Fire and Rescue's prevention success. Even looking at the graph that fires are a lot less frequent than they were, but also, as you just said, I was going to say the new challenges like lithium-ion batteries. Life is changing all the time, and this sort of data and having it so easily well laid out and easily read seems like a good way forward.
Councillor Banks.
Yes, I commend you for the report. It's really very easy to read and it is very complex and detailed, so thank you for that. I would also like to commend the amount of work you do within the communities, which I don't think everyone does, and I do think that helps people to understand where the dangers are, and I think it will be imperative with regard to the lithium-ion batteries in the future, because people don't realise they should be recycled separately.
Councillor Byron.
Yes, thank you. Good report. And this is slightly different to what we will normally receive. And the one that we would normally receive often shows a map comparing the fires against the incidence of multiple deprivation, NUTS I think it's called, which shows the sort of prevalence of fire in areas of deprivation. But this report is interesting. It's trying to show what is clear, well, it's clearly the case, is a fall in house building fires. I think it would be useful to track, survivability of car accidents, because we do seem to concentrate on, on building fires, but an awful lot of what we do is rescue, from vehicles and so forth. Thank you. But now on page 71, 72, we're talking about smoke alarm analysis. Now, it was at the 25th anniversary of this authority, some 25 years ago, that we undertook to provide 25,000 smoke detectors to go into the community. The year later, the then John Prescott's department put £60 million up for the whole country. Well, we were already well into it. We'd put 25,000 detectors in, not all in one go, across the country. Now, 25 years on from that, a lot of the smoke detectors that are available now, we fit smoke detectors. We fit 2, maybe 3. We've moved more towards vulnerable people. We've started to be a bit more smart. There's a lot of properties already got them and we're refreshing them. But the types of smoke detectors are changing with those times. They're now linked into Wi-Fi, digital. I think some of those are AI, and they can alert us to a proper fire. Sometimes with a double knock, a double tap, including the smoke and also the flicker. And I wonder if this is partly, what we can lead on, and this is where we're looking to a college of fire. The world is changing, we need to modernise. We can keep the people of Merseyside safe as well by looking at new types and systems of smoke and fire detection. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. It is an excellent report, and it's always good to sort of look back and reflect on, the actions that's been taken over the last 20 years. And I think I asked that question some time ago. What is on the shoulders of Deb, wasn't it? You sort of collate all the information, really. So that must have been a massive task, isn't it, to do that? But yeah, it's brilliant, and it gives. I know there was a thing in the Echo, wasn't it, yesterday?
Yeah,
that give the sort of summary of the report, but it sort of, it sends that message across, doesn't it, really, that, you know, everybody's prone to being caught in a fire, and the fire deaths over the years have reduced generally, but we can never predict, can we? That's the worst thing about the sort of service that we deliver. You can never predict from one year to the next, even though we try our best to keep it as low as practically possible, and last year was, you know, the saving point in the sense of only having one. But when we look at how we've identified the most at risk, the most vulnerable, so it's males living alone over 65. And you think, I'm 60 now, so I've only got 5 years before I become a more high risk of that. But it's with that data that we build, isn't it?
Yeah.
And how we can identify those individuals going forward, and to making sure that all the other partners can share that information. Because I know we pick it up in the home fire safety checks and with the health and wellbeing visits as well, which is great. But if we need to target that a bit more, I don't know whether that's a thing that we could look at. Because going forward, that figure is only going to increase, isn't it? So where we target our resources is making sure we've got that data and the intel to make sure that we can get through the threshold of these individuals' properties, to make sure that we can safeguard them as best we can, because even with the majority of them, even that, like the smoke alarms fitted, it still wasn't enough, was it really? And you just think as well with technology, whether there's anything else that we need in those circumstances when they're investigated about the fire death, but what can we actually do to improve on those? And so like question for me is about that separation about properties they live in. How many of them are in supported accommodation or in residential living? Because I know myself in the past there's been a number of people who lived in, because they're not warden assisted schemes no more, are they? They're independent living, so anybody over the age of 55 can move into these. So there's a mixture of tenure in those properties. But there was one in Anfield, wasn't he, 2 years ago or so. So the likes of that, if that's the case, it's working with the social landlords, because it's our responsibility. They've also got a responsibility as well, and making sure that we keep involved with them and educate them, because the changes with legislation and fire safety regulations, they need to ensure that they do their part. Because I know of the schemes I manage that there's compliance that I need to follow. There's things that I need to ensure that the blocks are safe. There's no items left in the communal areas, and that people don't hoard, because that's the other thing, isn't it? How people hoard, and there's an increase of people hoard. So there's a different elements and stages what we do, but I think it's all about getting that intelligence, isn't it? It's also about getting that data to make sure that we do the right thing. But I don't know whether we can look at different ways of working to target that sort of demographics of all males over the age of 65 who live alone.
Yeah, so I'd say this is a 20-year summary. The annual reports go into a lot more detail in terms of the circumstances relating to, sadly, you know, the 7 people who lost their lives last year. And each one of those will have either been known to ourselves or another partner agency. Some of the challenges that we have at the moment is unlocking the data to each other for all the right reasons and putting the right safeguards in. So GPs is probably an ongoing piece of work, where if we can access the right people who are living in areas of deprivation plus other associated factors, they are your real high risk people, because every one of those people will have been known to another agency, maybe not ourselves. It's about refining our strategy and making sure we can evolve. In addition to what Councillor Byron's just said in terms of the use of technology, there's risks for us as a fire and rescue service in terms of you look at waste fires we mentioned before, but also incorporating technology into our own strategies. So the use of Wi-Fi, linking it to internet, making ourselves more accessible to other services and other people. You know, in terms of, there's nothing that's going to beat going across the threshold of someone's front door and giving them home fire safety advice, but we can reach more people now through, you know, by embracing technology, by embracing sort of AI, and there's lots there. So in terms of reassurance for members, Mark Thomas, who can't be with us today, who's head of prevention, and certainly Kevin Longshaw, who's head of our protection departments, their task this year is to look and explore new technologies that's using to make us more efficient and effective in terms of what technology can we use to bolster our offer, what technology can we use, and what do we need to be aware of as we're seeing emerging risks that we're going to respond to. So, you know, it's twofold. There's new risks evolving, these opportunities for us to get even more and more targeted in terms of our methods of keeping members of the public safe. So, you know, that's a key part of their functional plans for next year.
Councillor Finneran.
Thanks, Chair. One of the things I've learned being away in my son's house is they've got a fire alarm. It's just not a sound, it shouts fire as well. You know, it really does scream out at them. And what there is, they don't, in their house or the houses that they build, they have to have a fire alarm in every room. Even in the basements, they have to have the fire alarm in there. So that's a new way that I'd never heard of it speaking, like it shouts fire. I've never heard that before. Thanks, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Westhead.
Just to pick up on one of the categories that make people vulnerable, 57.7% of victims have a disability. I was talking to somebody last night who was talking about how 1 in 3 people will be like hearing impaired. So I don't know whether there's actually a piece of work to do around outreach, like making, because obviously this fits in with living alone as well. If you're hard of hearing, your smoke alarm goes off and you can't hear it, that's going to impact you being able to get out. So if we are looking at emerging technology, and if we are looking at perhaps like factors that make people vulnerable, loss of hearing might be something to look at.
Yeah, so we've got advocates, we've got hard of hearing advocates who work on that in terms of those outreach and difficult for people to reach, but also use of different types of alerting, as our councillor just spoke about before. Not all, you know, people can, so that may be visual or it could be vibration in terms of that those products are available now, and we do that in some of our high risk members of the public.
Yeah. Do you have any influence on the people who build the houses, especially social housing? Do you have any cooperation with them before houses are built? So you were saying in other countries all houses have certain things.
Yes, we'll be consulted on new buildings, and our protection teams will offer
Would you
advice and
use your mic,
support. Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, so yeah, we work closely with building owners and sort of developers. So we'll offer advice. Our protection team, more specifically, will give sort of statutory guidance where they're able to. We'll always encourage, you know, the use of, again, new technology, what's available there. But sometimes that's down to individual developers and what they will choose to do.
Thank you.
Councillor Byron.
Yes, thank you on that very same point. We used to be a statutory consultee on planning, and many years ago that was taken away. But there is a debate going on at the LGA right now about how we would cope with improving, probably not checking every single application, but being involved in development of design plans and spatial layout and, you know, vehicular, you know, lots of things really. But we really do need to get back involved. We're the experts on this type of safety issue, and if we can only just feed that into the planning and development process, I think that would help to improve the safety of our communities.
Thank you. Any other comments? No. Okay. Well, I think it is clear from the data that we've gone from 30 years ago having an average about 15 fire dwelling deaths a year to these days it's more like 5. So we're clearly heading in the right direction. We must be doing something right. That year, 2023-24, when we only had 1, is a fantastic achievement. As tragic as the one death is. I know that we'll keep pushing for the year when we have 0 fire deaths, and I know we'll celebrate when that happens. And then we'll keep pushing for more.
Correct.
So thank you very much for all that. I did have one quick question. Just looking at the rate per head of population, it does seem like Wirral is a little bit of an outlier. Do we have any reasons for that? Looking at it, we've even compared to Liverpool, there's been more fire deaths on Wirral in total terms, but in pro rata, it's about twice as many as St Helens and Knowsley. So do we have any theory behind that?
Not totally. Again, for this year, what I'm asking the team to look at is to try and diversify slightly in terms of the overall approach, as Councillor Hanratty said before. You know, the over 65s are areas of high deprivation. Personally, when you look at that, the thing I've picked up from the report is that that varies around Merseyside. So to focus, you would say, looking at Liverpool, our strategy would probably aim more to focus on the areas of high deprivation. When you look at Wirral, it's slightly different, and I think that's quite new. If we approach it, our prevention offer this year bespoke to the areas and real focus on the people who we need to visit. You know, so I currently it's Pan Merseyside, but I see over the next couple of years we'll be a little bit more targeted into the uniqueness of each of the borders really and districts.
Yeah, and as people were saying before, with the small sample size, it's not necessarily statistically significant, but it's still worth bearing in mind. Thank you very much for the report. The recommendation is that we note the contents. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, next we have the corporate risk register, the April to September update. Chief?
Thanks, Chair. The purpose of the report is to inform members of the current risks contained within the corporate risk register, including any updates for the period April to September 2025. And it's recommended that members approve the updated corporate risk register for 25-26, which incorporates the current status of those risks to September of this year. So members are also aware, officers have sought an external review of the corporate risk register and how we record those risks moving forward. And the proposals are being implemented, and this includes a new format for capturing risk from department level upwards. And this new approach to managing the corporate risk will be used in preparation for the 26-27 corporate risk register. The risk register itself is contained within pages 86 to 138, and I'm happy to take any questions on the corporate risk register.
Members have any questions then on the corporate risk register? Councillor Byron.
Yes, thank you. Just to amplify on that, many organisations are looking at what you might call these global risks that we have not a lot of control over, you know, the government finance and outside of our control, reputational risk. Well, that's another one really, and looking at that in a different way and concentrating on the risks that we can control, controlled risks. But actually, in a way, you know, reputational risk comes into that, and you know, it is one of those things that's very, very difficult to manage. But a lot of organisations, supported by the LGA and others, you know, SIPFA and sort of that type of professional organisation, are just looking at a redefinition of a lot of what we put in a risk register.
Yeah, just like that with the review, and I won't go into the details about it now, but the idea is quite a few of the risks that are currently contained are probably not at the corporate level, and some of them I think we can contain within some of the functional planning and the work that we do, and the risks that we contain within the functional managers. So that's the idea, that the future risk register will be a little bit more focused on some of the key corporate risks that concern us.
Any other comments? In that case, can we agree the recommendation, which is that members approve the updated corporate risk register, which incorporates the current status of those risks up to September 2025?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay. Item 8 is the statement of assurance. Chief?
The purpose of the report is to request that members consider and approve Merseyside Fire and Rescue Authority's Statement of Assurance 24-25 for publication on the authority website. And it's recommended that members note the information contained within the report, approve the authority's draft Statement of Assurance 24-25, and if approved, the Statement of Assurance be signed by the Chair of Merseyside Fire Rescue Authority and the Chief Fire Officer. The Fire and Rescue Service National Framework, published in 2012 and revised in 2018, sets out a requirement for fire and rescue authorities to publish the annual Statement of Assurance. The framework outlines the way in which the authority and its fire and rescue service has had regard to the National Risk Framework, the Community Risk Management Plan, and to any strategic plans prepared by the authority for that period, 24-25. The authority's Statement of Assurance has been prepared in a way that does not substantially duplicate our existing plans, reports and any other documents, but includes links to existing documents held already within the authority's website. The statements of assurance is on page 143, and I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thanks, Chief. Okay. Are there any questions on the statement of assurance? This is something we have to publish annually. Councillor Byron?
I was waiting to see if anybody else had any comments or observations to make, because this is one of those moments where, as chair of the authority, I have to put my head on the block, you know, and it's for anybody else to wield the axe if they wanted to. But generally speaking, I think we as members can be proud, very proud, of what our officers, our staff, our firefighters, our fire inspectors, all those people in this organisation who've contributed to keep the public of Merseyside safe. I go to the city region, I hear what other leaders say from around the districts. You know, I believe St Helens are going to offer us the freedom of the borough of St Helens, and we've been given the freedom of Liverpool, and everybody else speaks very, very highly, of course, of what we do and deliver here. So it's up to members to decide whether they agree this, but should they agree with it, I would sign this with great pride on behalf of another year of work well done by our staff.
Agreed.
Councillor Craig?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of vaguely repeating, but on page 47, the next to last paragraph, as Les says with pride, that develop policies and procedure based on risk, demand, vulnerability, target our efforts towards the most vulnerable and at risk within our communities, and I just think that's so commendable, so thank you.
Any other comments? I was disappointed to see that 21 new LSOAs have moved up into the top 10% most deprived in the UK, which is obviously not the direction we'd be hoping for. But that's obviously no reflection of the services work. As Councillor Byron says, this is I think this is something we can be proud of to publish this statement. The recommendations were set out by the Chief, recommendations A, B and C. Are they approved?
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you, members.
Okay, so that takes us on to the service delivery plan, July to September update. Back to you, Chief.
Mr. Chair. The purpose of the report is to request that members scrutinise the performance of Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service against the objectives and the performance targets and outcomes as set out in the Service Delivery Plan 25-26 for the period July to September 2025, so that's Q2. And it's recommended that members approve the attached Service Delivery Plan reports, appendices A to K, for publication on the website. The agenda item also contains the Service Delivery Plan, the Community Risk Management Plan updates, and then also the Functional Plan updates for each of the relative functions within the organisation. There's a lot of detail in there, but more than happy to take any questions on anything of it.
Thanks, Chief. Any questions on this report? Would you be able to say just a bit more about why we don't record the false alarms in the totals?
Yeah, absolutely. False alarms aren't recorded as such or scrutinised in much detail because we don't want to prevent people making calls basically, or calling or requesting fire and rescue service as a negative. We actually encourage people to make calls to request our assistance, and we'll make that determination if we're required when we get there.
Okay, any other questions? Yeah. Councillor Nakinson.
Thanks, Chair. Just on the attendance standards, it's fantastic that we get to 96.5% of incidents so quickly. I just wonder if it would be useful to see figures for those few where we don't meet that standard, just so we know how big a gap there is.
Absolutely, we can get further details for you on that, just to give members reassurance that attendance standard is more than comparable with any other fire and rescue service in the UK. Really is an outstanding attendance standard. And as you know, the way we mobilise our appliance, we have the 10 key station methodology. There are areas of the service that are out of that 10-minute response standard on occasion. We have looked at further development with the appliances themselves, the way we are mobilising appliances and giving more control or more authority to our fire control room staff to monitor where each appliance is, to make sure every area of Merseyside is covered, to hopefully enhance that and have a better, even better response than we do at the moment, but just to assure members that that genuinely is an outstanding response across the UK fire and rescue sector.
Any other comments? Okay. So it's recommended that members approve the attached service delivery plan reports, appendices A to K, for publication on the website. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, we've got the relocation assistance policy. Back to you, Chief.
Thanks, Chair. The purpose of the report is to request that members approve the publication of a relocation assistance policy to support ongoing external recruitment. And the recommendation is that members note the content of the report and approve the relocation assistance policy. Our People Plan 24-27 outlines how we intend to explore all avenues for increasing the diversity of our workforce by building upon and strengthening existing positive action initiatives to ensure that we can attract a diverse range of talent. And this approach includes the consideration and removal where possible of any potential barriers. For some operational roles, there is no longer any absolute requirement to reside within the Merseyside County boundary, as the suite of available duty patterns allows for such recruits to be allocated to stations or duty patterns to take account of their current home address. However, feedback received from potential applicants to the service has indicated that for other roles, specifically those where there is a need to provide senior officer operational cover, that the necessary requirement of having to live within a 45-minute isochrone of service headquarters is a barrier. While such operational requirements are necessary, officers have explored options that may assist in reducing barriers for external applicants, and under existing national provisions, employers are legally able to offer financial support to newly appointed employees who they require to relocate in order to meet the specific needs of their operational role, so to provide the senior officer operational cover. Under these provisions, relocation costs such as removal and storage costs, stamp duty, legal surveys, auctioneers, search and land registry fees, and more importantly, temporary accommodation and rent and tenancy deposits. The availability of a relocation assistance policy that removes these potential barriers for particular roles will expand the scope of quality applicants received. The total level of support offered under this relocation assistance policy is capped at £7,500 per officer, and the policy itself is contained on page 345, Chair. I say that this report is really for us to, when we do our recruitment of officers transferring into the service, it's to offer them support as they transfer in to the service to relocate basically to Merseyside or to the surrounding area to ensure that they can fulfil their operational requirements. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Councillor Makinson.
Thanks, Chairman. Obviously, it's impossible to predict how much this might cost in any particular year, but roughly how many posts would potentially qualify for this?
As you say, really tricky to identify how many senior officers we would transfer in on each particular year. If we use this year for an example, there's 2 officers have come in from external services at the moment. We've had 2 new female officers join us. One has joined from Lancashire and one has joined from Cheshire. I'm not too sure whether they've taken up the relocation policy, but the idea is it'd be offered to them to utilise it to help them transfer into Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service.
Right. I was just wondering more in terms of how, overall across the authority, how many individual posts would potentially be open for this if someone was recruited who qualified?
Do you want to come in, Nick?
Yeah, if I can without sounding slightly evasive, Councillor. It really is. What we're looking at is utilising this for posts that become difficult to fill, those posts where we get 1 or 2 applicants for a particular specialism, or as the Chief alluded to, an officer position. It's not something that we would utilise for some of the more generic posts, because we get 50, 60, 70 applications still for an awful lot of our recruitment. So the policy prescribes that as part of the pre-planning that we do before every application, before every advert goes out, we look at the duties, we look at what's required, we look at the potential risk of what we're going to get coming through in people relations, and then we'll make a call as to whether it warrants the addition of this opportunity for people on a post-by-post basis. So it's not likely to, it's not going to, in my opinion, and I'm certainly speaking with Mike Wright, it's not something that's going to be financially unstable for us.
Councillor Banks.
Yeah, I think you've covered part of it, but my question was, are we seeing better recruitment because of this? Is it actually having impact? Are we able to attract people from other areas because there is some financial help incoming?
I'll take that. Yeah, absolutely. I think we do have numerous inquiries about officers wanting to transfer in or wanting a bit of support as they come in from other areas. So we do have, and I say we've had 2 applicants this year who are transferring in, potentially going to utilise this, 2 female applicants, which is something we just haven't seen in the past. So I do think it will really, really work. Just to come back to Councillor Makinson's question, the number of senior officers we probably have about 40 senior officer positions within the organisation. It does fluctuate. How many of those are open for recruitment each year differs, is the truth of it, anywhere between 0 to 10 or 15 potential promotions each year. How many of them would go externally out of Merseyside, because we're very fortunate, we've got fantastic staff here in Merseyside, and people transferring in would have to excel and be better than the staff that we have here. So I say there's been 2 this year potentially, so we're looking at a very small number of people, but I couldn't quite put a number on it, if that makes sense. It would be the best people on the day who would get the job, obviously.
Councillor Byron.
Yes, thank you. This is a restatement of the policy. It's not an increase in the budget. So whatever the cost, it would be accommodated within the budget. That was the question that I was asking. I was interested in my briefing. And I think the object of this is to enable us to take the best of the staff and to improve our gender balance and to improve the possibly age. And there'll be some people who've moved away from Merseyside want to move back. Of course, why wouldn't you? And I think, generally speaking, this is a very good. It's a tool to have in the toolbox, which may not be used every time. And I think over a 10-year period, there probably wouldn't be a lot of people who would qualify for this. But I think this would be a helpful measure and assist us in hitting a lot of those targets that we've been seeking to try to achieve.
Can I just ask why the cap was chosen? Is there any particular reason for the 7,500 figure, rather than say 6,000 or 9,000?
There was, sorry if I can. It's based on a national prescription, so that the national prescription based on the old method that was in the grey book. It used to be in the grey book and then it's become part of local determination now. That was 7, so we just felt 7.5. Too much of a finger in the air, just provides an element of extension beyond the time that has passed, and it feels appropriate. It's something that we can continue to review if people say there isn't enough opportunity there, but so far it's proved successful.
Councillor Banks.
Yeah, I wonder if there's any facility for that to increase with inflation.
Yeah, potentially. I think let's see how this goes this year. We do recruitment this year utilising the new policy, and let's see if it does work. People are attracted to come into the service. It is quite, I was just thinking about it as we were talking, it's quite hard to attract people to come, because the reality is for people to transfer cross country nowadays and move their whole family, etc., it's a huge ask for people. So it is something we're going to monitor this year as we do recruitment and just see if it's worked and it's been efficient and served what we wanted to do.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll be asked to note the contents of the report and approve the relocation assistance policy. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, item 11, which is the pay policy. Chief?
Thanks, Chair. The purpose of the report is to request that members approve publication of the annual pay policy in line with the requirements of section 38 of the Localism Act 2011, and it's recommended that members approve publication of the authority's pay policy and note the pay awards for 2025 have been agreed and implemented, covering grey and green book colleagues. However, agreement has yet to be reached over the 25 pay award for our red book to the craft colleagues. The pay policy is an annual updated statement that is placed on our website and available to the public. It allows us to look at comparative data across the organisation and identify an unjustifiable gender bias and address it where appropriate. Salary levels are nationally negotiated through the NJC each year, and all fire authorities implement the agreed awards. Focus is always placed nationally on the minimum wage levels to ensure local government pay stays above minimum wage, and this has led previously to the lowest salary points being removed. Members will note that this report that we as an authority are currently also above the real living wage level at this time. But I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Are there any questions on this report?
Please.
Councillor Byron.
Yes, thank you. It's one of the things we look at is the regionally adjusted national minimum wage. We're getting really complex now, and I think this came to the NJC, and I think all of the members of the NJC said these are fantastic people, and we should not be employing people, you know, anywhere near the national minimum wage, and it's an investment in the people of Merseyside to ensure that those people, even at training grades, even new into the authority, are properly remunerated for the tremendous job that they do.
Any other comments? No? Okay. So can we approve the publication of the authority's pay policy and note that the pay awards for 2025 have been agreed and implemented, covering the grey and green book, but agreements yet to be reached over the red book? Is that agreed? Okay, thank you. Item 12, New Dimensions 2, procurement of USAR K9 vehicles.
Thanks, Chair. Just let members know this is to do with our role as the lead authority for UK national resilience. So the purpose of the report is to inform members of the outcome of the procurement exercise and to seek authorisation to procure 17 search dog vehicles or K9 vehicles as part of the New Dimensions 2 programme. And it's recommended that members note the contents of the report and approve the award of the contract to the Ford Motor Company for 17 K9 vehicles at a total purchase cost of approximately £1.1 million. As members are aware, ND2, or New Dimensions 2, is a national capability uplift programme that supports the UK national resilience. The K9 vehicles will be used to transport urban search and rescue search dogs and search dog handlers to operational incidents, and the procurement of the 17 K9 vehicles form part of a range of solutions in the wider project of the New Dimensions 2 and will enhance the search and rescue response capability. A suitable framework agreement was Crown Commercial Services, purchase of standard and specialist vehicles, and following a meeting with CCS's framework agreement manager to confirm the approach, quotes were secured for a similar vehicle to the one in service. Funding for the 17 K9 vehicles is provided by MHCLG as part of the ND2 USAR project and is approximately £1.1 million, so will not impact MFRA's budgets at all. All funding comes straight from MHCLG. And as I say, this is part of our role as National Resilience Lead Authority, and all these vehicles are purchased for the ND2, apologies for the acronyms, ND2, and once in service they will be distributed around the wider UK Fire and Rescue Service. We'll have to take any questions, Jeff.
Any questions from members? Councillor Finneran.
It's not a question, I just think you deserve anything longer. I'm afraid you touched a very sensitive part of my being in the fire service. When you've got Vespa, she's got to have the best.
Yeah, Vesta says woof woof.
Yeah, yeah.
I just think they're brilliant.
Any other comments? Alright, well in that case it's recommended that we note the contents of the report and approve the award of the contract to Ford for 17 K9 vehicles at a cost of approximately £1.1 million. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay.
Agreed.
Woof woof.
Item 13, new dimensions to procurement of USAR power tools.
Thanks, Chair. Again, this is our role as lead authority, and this is to purchase power tools for the urban search and rescue teams. The purpose of the report is to inform members of the outcome of the procurement exercise and to seek authorisation to procure the power tools and lighting equipment detailed within the report as part of the ND2 programme that supports UK national resilience. And it's recommended that members note the contents of the report and approve the award of the contract to TW Engineering Company Limited for the purchase of the equipment listed below at a total cost of £717,487.81. As you know, ND2 is the National Capability Uplift Programme that supports the UK national resilience, and the urban search and rescue capability currently have a wide variety of power tools and lighting systems. The procurement of the battery-powered equipment forms part of a range of solutions in the wider project for ND2 and will enhance the search and rescue response capability directly. The procurement procedure was compliant with the authority's contract standing orders and the public contract regulations as applicable, and this ensures a fair and transparent route to market for all suppliers on the framework. Funding for the equipment is provided by MHCLG as part of the ND2 USAR project, and the procurement cost of the equipment listed was £717,487.81. And I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Any questions about this one? Councillor Byron.
Thank you. Other than the point before us, we've been spending a lot of money. And it's not our money, well, it's our taxpayers' money. This authority will be responsible, the members around this table and our other tables, for delivering on behalf of the government, UK Fire. If we are successful, there's 29 million on the table at the moment, 29.5. If we are successful, there could be another 70 million. And that will mean this authority agreeing spending more in, or probably more in capital than we have in revenue in a year. And some of the big numbers projects are still to come. And so we are playing a part in ensuring that the whole of England, the English Fire Service particularly, has at the right equipment, at the right price, properly purchased, and the decision has been properly scrutinised by members, which wouldn't otherwise happen if this just went into the Home Office project process. So, you know, other than any questions that members may have, this is the tail end of a lot more spending that should come through, for which members will see the benefit.
Thanks, Les. Any other comments?
Just regarding ND2, just to give you the assurance, the governance here, obviously, I'm the strategic lead for national resilience, but the deputy chief there is overseeing New Dimensions 2 project on behalf of the UK Fire and Rescue Service, supported by Dave Watson, who was presenting to you earlier. And there's as the chair says, there's a huge amount of work going on in the background around that, and a large amount of reports to come. But it's a great privilege, really, for us to be able to do this and purchase, you know, 50 to 100 million pounds worth of equipment for the UK Fire and Rescue Service. It's a huge piece of work, and the teams that are going on, we've got procurement, legal, HR, everyone is involved in it within Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service, and I'm really aware there is a huge amount of work for everybody in the building, but it really, really does enhance Merseyside as our standing with MHCLG and within the government department. So I think it's fantastic for us as a service to be doing this, but I do appreciate it's a huge amount of work for everyone as well.
Thanks, Chief. Councillor Banks.
That was going to be my comment. It is a massive amount of work that's coming out of this authority, and obviously you were trusted to do that, which is a great solace to us because we know how good the staff is here that are able to do that. And I think you should be applauded for doing all that, because that's taking the stress off a lot of other fire authorities. But we are doing that here.
Absolutely.
So I do applaud all your efforts. Thank you very much.
Any other comments? No? Okay. In that case, it's recommended that members note the contents of the report and approve the award of the contract to TW Engineering Co Limited for the purchase of the equipment listed below at a total cost of £717,487.81. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the end of the meeting, so thank you very much, members. Happy Christmas and New Year, and we'll see you all on the 19th of March.
Thank you, Chair. Before